Hello and welcome to the Localized Hub hosted by Jodi Bolo Rongin under the Arts and Culture Management Conference 2021. Today we have our panel on folk arts in India and we are very excited to have two guests here with us today. Before introducing them, I would take a few seconds to introduce us. We are Jodi Bolo Rongin. We are hosting this Localized Hub. My name is Pratyay and along with me I have Shubholokhi, Tamalika, Shamwa and Ananya. We are a group of young professionals who work with the arts and culture to promote creative activities and to promote creative expression in the Bengali language here in Kolkata. And today we have with us two very special guests who are working in a number of initiatives to support local artists, folk artists here in Bengal. So first we have Mr. Saibal Basu, who is a teacher and a theatre artist and a cultural and social activist working with marginalized communities. Welcome, thank you for being here. We also have with us Mr. Pratyay Raha, who is a musician who has co-founded and is involved with organizations working to support folk artists in Bengal. Welcome, thank you to you too. And without further ado, I think we can move into our discussion today. Thank you to everyone who's watching, who has joined us. Shubholokhi.
So to initiate the conversation, I would first ask the very practical question that if you could share with us your insights on how COVID-19 pandemic has affected, especially the folk artists.
If I am to speak, I first found when the lockdown was announced, the folk artists were basically, by folk artist, I specify the performers who are from the village and not from the town. And they took a considerable amount of time to negotiate with what is happening around, what is a lockdown and what is, a pandemic is real, because we also urban people, but we were very much accessible to the electronic media and especially the social media, and they were not. So it hampered their daily equilibrium of lifestyle, their philosophy, and their day-to-day thinking and working. So they took a considerable amount of time to negotiate with it. First, I observed, because I reside in a place in the foothills of the Himalayas, in the Terai, the North Bengal, and some of them are tea garden workers. The tea garden suffered the lockdown. Some of them are workers in the agricultural fields, and some of them work in nearby town or some other industry or in a business or market setup. So there are three categories of the folk artists. They are all professionals, but they do not earn their bread only for performing. Both ends meet come from other sources of income. So what I found that, first of all, the some tea gardens are already locked down and some tea gardens suffered the new lockdown. So they had a basic crisis. They faced a basic crisis of having their daily food and medicines. And the question of performing was absolutely suspended because of the lockdown, and they were the biggest sufferers, whom I found in this COVID-19 Indian lockdown period, is basically the late March, April, and the middle of May, till the middle of May. The singers, dancers, and folk theatre workers who basically are attached to agricultural profession, they didn't face that much of crisis regarding having their daily food because they got it from their own fields, but they couldn't connect themselves to the market and couldn't connect themselves to the performance space, which is sometimes in the villages and sometimes, in many a times, in the towns. Often they had problem receiving their grants, receiving their regular shows and cultures from government and non-government organizations. So they suffered a tremendous sense of identity crisis. which I found, because some of them came to us, came to the town, to the BDO offices, asking money and asking for programs, and they couldn't understand what a lockdown is. So this is so they were into depression, and they and I also found one thing which I did find really sad, because some of our urban quote unquote elitist cultural groups, they came to aid the folk artists personally or in a group in the form of money or other materials. They posted in Facebook such a way that that the folk artists are being served by them. I found that hampered the dignity of the artists also. I found a very unhealthy focus of the media on the central level, city level performers and quote unquote cultural personalities who, as if they are standing by, who are something somewhere low from their own status. I didn't find this very happy. I was very sad about it.
Uh, in line with what Saibal is saying, I just want to add that we are always talking about so many facets of our economy, like the agricultural economy. We have so much in the news about our agricultural economy. We have so much in the news about our social and political economy, but there is very little in the mainstream media about the cultural economy. So I was reading a report by British Council in collaboration with the Artex company and FICCI, which has mentioned that the small, micro, and medium scale enterprises which have suffered a fatal beating during the pandemic constituted about 88% of the cultural sector and cultural economy. So that was a huge thing, and like what Saibal is saying, we have started an initiative which is called REFA, Reviving Indian Folk Arts. And when we were asking people for funds in our urban space, we were saying, though we knew that we were going there to help them, but we asked people to contribute for a collaborative work, because this is actually collaborative work. We are supporting the artists who are not getting programs, who are not getting shows. Like I'll give an example. We went to a village in Purulia district of West Bengal. The name of the village is Chorida, which is a mask making village. People there make masks for a very famous dance form, folk dance form, which is called Chou. So these people in the mask making village were totally out of work because they couldn't supply masks to the Chou dancers, as the Chou dancers didn't have anything to perform. So the Chou dancers didn't have any performances, hence they didn't require any masks, and this interlinking hampered the growth of both the mask makers and the Chou dancers. So what we did was we bought masks from the mask makers, just one family of mask makers, because there are about 100 families in that village. So we bought masks from that one family, and we supplied those masks to one group of Chou dancers in a nearby village, in a way facilitating the whole process so that they can get new masks for the upcoming performances.
Pratyay, may I ask you one thing? Did
Yeah.
the Chou dancers, or some are related to some academies, or they are registered into the local district information and cultural office, did they receive their regular grant during that period?
Actually, they said that they received grants, the basic grants of ration, not anything related to their art form. So just
No,
food.
not getting grants of money. They didn't receive.
Yeah, they received grants of money for their food, but in the mask making village, they said that they didn't get any support from the government.
Actually, this brings me to my next question. That while talking about the cultural economy, how do you feel that the presence of big corporations and in this current globalized economy, how has the presence of these corporations affected folk artists over the past few years? Because I think it has been a process. The pandemic has hit them hard, obviously, but I think it has been happening for over the past few years. I would like to know about your thoughts on this or your personal experiences.
Uh, Actually, if you ask me, the corporations which are in this art and culture sector, they make huge profit by buying the buying. I'll just mention a amount like 100. Suppose rupees 100 they buy a product and they sell it at 500% profit. They make that much of margin in that business process. In a way, it doesn't help the folk artists in any way, because in the same way that we are talking about farmers crops going to big corporations, is the same cycle everywhere. So I think Shoibal would be able to elaborate on that.
Now, I can share a first-hand experience of mine, signifying many things regarding this cultural economy and the urban, quote-unquote, exploitation of the folk and the rural and all. My son is a textile designer, and he has been working in a corporate in Mumbai as a textile designer, and he lost his job on 7th of May. Then he started his own, and he connected the artisans, the weavers in Kerala, in West Bengal, especially the weavers, the textile weavers in Shantipur, Pulia, and he told me terrible narratives, saris, stoles, even in North Bengal and in Assam, this type of outfits, stoles. The artists cleared their stock with not only without profit, but they did not get all of their production costs. And your Pratyay says 500. I know houses in all India houses and some houses in Kolkata and in Mumbai. They purchase the fabrics, which they usually purchase the fabrics in 300% or 200% higher than but they purchase in 5 to 6 to 700% profit from the artisans, because the artisans had to sell the already produced stock of fabrics and saris and other things in loss just to purchase the daily bread, their daily rice. So it is a terrible narrative. I have first-hand experience about it.
And
so what about this
yeah.
urbanization? The problem is not only an economic problem. I do find it's also a cultural / political problem. The entire
Definitely.
urbanization of the folk, the entire urban hegemony working upon and controlling the folk and marketing the folk in their own way, in modifications, in and ecology, and they are creating a kind of constructed demand, their own artificially constructed
Right.
demand of the folk. That started the root of destruction in
Right.
this economy. And when it comes to the policies, we'll again talk about this.
I want to add to your point also that these big corporations do their branding just to satiate the appearance fetishism of urban people, like decorating their homes with masks, but they do not know what actually a mask is and why is it made, how is it made, and what is the history of a mask.
So there is a rootlessness, there is a disconnected thing.
Yeah. So the mask maker from whom which we collected the masks, he was he was in a very bad state, and he was sad. He was telling us that from the government we get like a 10,000 rupee grant for our food in maybe a 6 months, maybe in a year, but that doesn't help our art, that doesn't help the legacy or the tradition. They were saying that there should be more learning institutes, so that the next generation comes to learn about these traditions, so that
And
the
respect.
people, yeah, from learning, obviously there'll be respect. So people should go and visit these places and learn about how these things happen, not only make it a decorative item or commercial commodity.
I was just thinking, listening to both of you speak about your experiences, that India is often marketed or portrayed as a nation with a very rich cultural lineage, a rich cultural history, and but a lot of times these cultural products and these what artisans make, what artists make, these are exoticized. These are seen as very unique, and and this kind of adds to India's brand value, for want of a better term. But at the same time, the artists who actually create these are left in the shadows, and this has been going on for a long time. And this whole alienation, I think this is very common in a capitalist system like this. And what the COVID-19 pandemic did was that it sort of brought to light all these issues that were already existing. It showed us what
Yeah.
was wrong with this system, and now we,
Yes.
if still we are in denial, then it is an informed denial. We can no longer claim to be ignorant. We now we know everything that is wrong with this system, and the way we live, and the way we approach society,
Absolutely.
the society we live in. But now we can no longer say that, oh, we didn't know that it was so bad. Now we know, and if we still don't do something about it,
Pratyay, I
then
want to
yes.
add one thing. Whenever we purchase a musical product, you say a song. First of all, we come to know, but we buy it for the name of the singer. We deny the name of the composer and other things. Regarding the fabrics and other folk things, I'll
Right.
give you one thing. Nowhere the name of the artist or the name of the group or the proper genre of the type of thing is never mentioned.
Right.
Never mentioned. So this is terrible. So there is the basic denial of the existence, the identity of the creative person. Marketing is the second. The market denies it.
I think I didn't want to mention this word, but ultimately this is a capitalistic mode of production where the workers are totally
Absolutely.
exploited.
Absolutely. And here comes the role of the state. Here comes the role of the government.
Yes, and in this context, I think what we also want to highlight is that what do you think, what kind of policies are required to deal with a situation like this? What kind of changes are required in policy? I mean, in a country like India, it's often very difficult. It's of course a challenge to come up with a policy, and a kind of one size fits all approach is never going to solve anything in a country like India, which is so diverse, and each community, that each group of folk artists, each kind of folk art, they all require special conditions and special kind of support, and there is no one
Yeah.
size fits all approach. But at this, we do find that like you said in the very beginning, that we talk about many sectors, but this sector is very often overlooked. So
Right.
what would you say, what kind of policy changes do we need to see to move forward?
I think Shoibal, you can start.
Well, actually, there are, policymakers and policies change due to the philosophy of the political parties. And if there is any philosophy, sometimes I doubt about it. And I'm sorry. And policies, there are certain good policies. I can give you another first-hand experience. I am attached to one home of girls where we have number of girls, heterogeneous group of girls who some of them are orphans, some of them are juvenile criminals, if they are juvenile criminals, some of them are rape and molestation victims, some of them are homeless. So we tried to, and there is a very good option in our West Bengal that these type of girls and any group of girls or young generation artisans, they can make a self-help group and register the self-help group into the local corporation, municipality or block or panchayat, and they can run as a self-help group. They often get a space by the government to run their business and get some loans also, subsidized loans. Now, what I found that this is a very good thing, but awareness of these self-help projects and promotion of these projects, which can be a parallel or a complementary or a binary of the capitalistic mode, it can run as a successful cooperative in which in the way Mahatma Gandhi used to think in the small scale productions, in small scale production, in the way Rabindranath used to think in Sriniketan, in when he founded Vishwabharati. But these self-help groups, again, they produce things. You see, I'm giving you one example that I bought from the self-help group, this Tibetan bell. Again, I come to Pratyay once again, that this was being sold by the self-help group without the meaning and purpose of the thing, because this was just came to that. So it's a Tibetan bell, it has a purpose, it has a purpose of musical or chanting or something like this. But this bell was produced by a lecture group, and then it was came to a self-help group. They sold it to some elite person like me without any purpose, just it has been a commodification of thing. And other thing, to produce this group, produce these things, one can get good loans, subsidized loans. These parts should be highlighted by the government and by the media. So regarding this, another thing I think Pratyay can say that if the basic mode of system is capitalistic, and the central government, which has more power than the state governments, they are going to construct a very monolithic economy, which I say, very monolithic stern economy based on big shopping malls, large investments, and big markets. So I think this philosophy of economy goes against the interest of the folk artists as individual and also as community.
Right, whatever you said is absolutely, I agree with every word of it, because like whatever you said is the cooperative based working system, because the
And
cultural,
collaboration based also.
yes, absolutely, the cultural part of India is actually our collective identity. It's not me or you or any single person, it's our collective identity. So I think whatever you are doing, congratulations for that. That's a great job that you're doing.
Just trying in
Yeah,
a very small
so
space.
that's
Maybe for the significant space.
that's a small organization. So about the policy thing that we were talking about, I think that setting up of these small organizations or small networks, we know that Ministry of Culture's Government of India looks into these matters, but it's not possible for one department based in Delhi to continuously monitor everything that is happening in such a diverse country. So I think decentralization of power and decentralization of funds is very important, and I would have been very
And
happy
decentralization of policies also.
absolutely, and I would have been very happy if this conversation was being heard by the state government and the central government about the issues that are happening in West Bengal. So decentralization of power and decentralization of funds is very important, but the system of disbursing money or using it in a proper way, that should be monitored. That should be a robust technology which will not allow any corruption, that will not allow any kind of middleman kind of thing taking a cut money, which we are very familiar with, where the money doesn't reach the actual people. From 2017, central government had allotted a lot of funds to these folk artists and folk artisans, but they have not been correctly disbursed till now. So that's an issue. There is a lot of funds being allocated, but funds are not reaching the right place.
And to add one thing, Pratyay, I totally agree with you. We are on the same line. But also the folk artists if there is any self-help group and cooperative. There shouldn't be any elitist hierarchical advisory body of that. They should be the decision maker.
Yes, I think as you have both stressed on, accountability is very important, and which is often missing, and the artists themselves don't have a voice, and it's so one mistake that we often think is that they are voiceless and they need to be spoken for, but that is, I think, just another kind of oppression. It's that artists are never voiceless. It's just that we don't listen and we don't step back when we should. I mean, we are all urban elite. We all come from urban elitist spaces, and we are talking about a space that we are not directly part of, which is something that I think we should have even acknowledged before. Also, we're doing it now. Is that we are all outsiders to this space, and all we are trying to do is to just try to speak from our perspective, but also keeping in mind that this is not the whole picture, and we cannot speak for the artist that you're talking about. I would like to bring up something else, which is a little bit different from this area that we've been discussing. It just came to mind through the discussions, which is that right now in India, we have this a tendency we are seeing in a lot of people and from the government itself to really create a narrow idea of culture, to create a narrow idea of what India is, what it stands for. And this often, this is very clearly reflective only of the culture of a certain upper caste, upper class group who have long held positions of power across institutions and within an economic power as well. And so, as you have both worked in the grassroots, how would you say that this idea of this monolithic idea of India and Indian culture, how can it be countered?
Primarily, I fully agree with you, Pratyay, that we shouldn't have any doubt whether we should give voice to the subordinate and whether they can speak or they can't speak. They have their own voice, and we have to listen to them. In line of this, I must say that one counter movement, very small, in very small spaces, but it can be done very significantly and very pronouncedly to help creating small spaces, which I always name as cultural spaces where performances, products of artisan by artisans, and local food presented in a very decent way, homemade local foods, which we do in our tea boutique. We said our, but we psychologically, emotionally attach ourselves to that. Our home girls have created a tea boutique of their own. They have got a space for the garment in a very small range. So what are they doing in the space is they are making local food, momo. They are making various types of tea. They are performing what they have learned and they're unlearning many things also, and they're making us learn and unlearn many things also. And these small spaces with their own varied identities and voices can counter this monolithic, singular, very classist, somewhere very of course power-centric, that is patriarchal definition of culture, to which we are unknowingly succumbing to, defining India as this, and we are succumbing to this definition. So this is time to speak, this is time to interact, and this is time help creating whatever information of the government grants and aids we have, just to stand by them, let them create and make our distance, let us make a space for interactions in all senses of the term.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, and I want to add that the school I was talking about a little while back in Purulia, it's a very remote place in Purulia, which is called the Arsha block in Purulia. It's behind the Ajodhya Pahad, Ajodhya Hill. So the school is run by a singer who sings Santali folk songs, writes them and sings them, and he used to perform and collect alms, which we called Madhukuri. And he used to run the school in that way, but after this COVID pandemic, he has not got any shows, and it's becoming very difficult for him to run the school. But he runs the school in a very progressive and very sustainable way. So the small networks that we were talking about, this is one such network where 150 children are studying, and they are making products, they are learning about nature, they are learning how to protect trees, they are writing about these. We saw different boards outside the school where they have written about nature and environment. And this environment is also, we have not talked about environment, but environment is very related to folk culture and folk arts.
Any culture.
Yeah, right. So the colors that they use are natural colors. So the environment, they are learning how to protect the environment. So this is a very progressive school that I have seen, but the school is in danger. We don't know how it will go forward and how we can manage the whole thing. But we have thought about a few programs and funding structures. So we will try to work with them and take the school forward. So this is a small example of a very small cooperative that is being developed. So, and there are many such examples of small cooperative networks that are spread across Bengal, where people are working to make a better society, to make a better place for the new generations. And we must just identify them, and we must go, and whatever you said, that can be thought of as cultural tourism, a space where there is food, there is performance, there is cultural products, there are folk products, the products made by the folk artisans.
And also books,
Yeah, definitely.
little magazines.
Yeah. So that can be a hub of cultural tourism, not only in the urban space, not only in the city, but outside the city as well.
Like cultural tourism, I think, is a very danger kind of, it's a difficult line. Like just one wrong step can, it can be actually harmful. I think also, like, it can bring us
Package tourism is dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a difficult
And Pratyay,
balance.
I have a very disrespected thing I find in this forest bungalows, also in resorts. Then the evening, the tea garden, the dancer, Adivasi dancers,
Yes.
you have the caption, you are being entertained by the Adivasi
Yes,
dancers in
yes.
the evening in
This
a
is very
bonfire,
common.
where we
Yeah.
have our own glasses of drink and they perform for us. This is dangerous.
Yes.
This package and this don't horrible thing I can during this lockdown period in the Patachitra villages, we're running out of time, in the Patachitra villages near Puri, and the Gutipur dancers,
Localized.
many of them were taken to hotels for many kind of pleasure trips. So I know this personally. I'm so sorry to hear about it.
This is very dangerous. But what I was talking about is a completely alternative kind of travel and alternative
course.
kind of tourism, where people will actually get to know what is happening.
No, I mean, I just wanted to shed light that,
Yeah.
because I think it is something that nobody talks about, and
Yeah.
the distinction made between artists and entertainers, and it seems that the ones who are regarded as artists are always upper class and more privileged, and those who are entertainers always seem to be, who are not given even though they too are artists, but upper class societies don't see them as artists, but rather as, commodified entertainers, and they're not regarded as creative practitioners, and they're
Right.
it's more for the entertainment value, and they're exoticized. Even within the country, we exoticize the folk arts and arts that we are not familiar with, non-mainstream arts. We exoticize them.
Yeah, and I also want to add to what Preeti said. So we should have more awareness campaigns about these, not only cultural tourism but also awareness campaigns. So before creating a cultural space, people should be aware what this space is. So this thanks to Jodi Bolo Rongin that this kind of spaces create for this dialogue. This dialogue must continue, and it should happen in more spaces, and there's no limit to that more.
Yes, and I think the language is also an important factor here. Is that
Right.
I mean, we are, of course, we global conference, so we are having this discussion in English, but language also creates barriers, and a lot of these discussions, I think, should take place in different
The regional
languages
languages, yeah.
to make them more. So here I also was thinking about something what you said about future generations. I mean, a lot of these art forms are passed down through families. And when suppose the newest generation sees how the parents are not making any kind of monetary gains or financial improvements, and they're stuck in a cycle of poverty, they want to give up that art form. They want to give it
Right.
up and go into something more commercially viable, and in this way we find many forms dying. And I would ask you if you have anything particular to say about this, about young folk artists, and how do you think that they can be supported and encouraged to stay with. I mean, of course we have discussed that, but I mean, there is a difference between supporting a folk artist who has been doing it for a long time and is now facing challenges because of the pandemic or and other reasons, and about maybe an upcoming folk artist who is probably wondering whether he or she should at all continue with this familial profession, or just give it up and move into something else.
Yes, I think that this is a huge thing, and there should be a huge policy change. This totally depends on policy. The policies that define the movement of our culture, the dynamic nature of our culture is totally defined by the policies. So there should be more policies to breed new generation of folk artists. Like I was talking about the mask makers. So the person we were talking, the artist we were talking to, he was saying that his son doesn't want to make masks because he doesn't see the financial outcomes or the result oriented monetary gains from that art form. So he doesn't want to continue in that field, and he wants to go into something more commercial. So to get back the attention, but he loves it. He loves it. He loves the way his father or his grandmother or his mother or his grandmother has done the whole thing. But he's thinking that he'll move to some other discipline because he's not having a commercial future or financial outcome from it.
So if you just can share what in the first place inspired you to move into this particular stream or try to know more about folk, I think that will be much more inspiring because it will be your story, and I think many more people will be able to relate to it.
Like I said in the beginning about my music, so I have been learning music from childhood, and when I started learning folk music, I used to think about the origins of this music and how the urban space totally changes this music into something very commercial and treats it as a commodity. We see it every now and then that a folk song just gets commodified, and it loses its actual essence. So I wanted to learn about the origins of this music, but like that time, 2 to 3 years back, I didn't know that music cannot be thought of apart from life. So music is part of life, and music is especially folk music comes from the process of labor. So it comes from work. So like when a tube well is we have seen this in our city also. When a tube well is being bored, the boring of a tube well, four people just make a circular movement, and there is a sound that they make. So that is the first step of music, the music that comes from work. This inspired me actually. So to find out the origins of the music, and then I found out about all these cultures and arts and everything. So everything is related actually. Music, culture, arts, society, everything is related.
Yes, and I will really like to ask the same question to Mr. Basu, because what you do is really inspiring, and we really will want to know what actually got you started in this path.
Actually, I always found myself in the middle position of binaries, binaries of urban and rural, binaries of classical and folk. I believe these words are political constructs, cultural constructs.
Absolutely.
In 2009, when I started working on Rabindranath Tagore's dance theatre, Chandalika, which is basically a narrative of a Dalit woman and a Dalit woman's. I do not want to use this word empowerment, because I'm not happy with this expression, but a Dalit woman's rediscovering of her own identity as a human being. Um, so our cultural team worked in collaboration with the Raha communities of Alipurduar and Jalpaiguri, and they participated in their drums beats, their dance choreography, everything. We collaborated together. And then I found that what they feel and do, as Pratyay firmly pointed out, their performance, their designing, their presentation, everything related to their daily life and what they think, feel, see, and observe. Since it's English, I can demonstrate. And even when then I kept on visiting villages like the Patachitra villages, of the Gutupur dance villages, from where this Odissi dance comes, this classicalization of the Odissi from the so-called background, peripheral, marginal folk performances. So I found how alive those things are, how alive, how related. So to dissolve the binaries between the academic and the non-academic in the field of learning, or to stop defining learning as only academic, only syllabus-oriented, academic, elitist, again monolithic, was my dream that I should work in this field, and I tried to work. It's a very small, very difficult medium of working, but again, I enjoy working in this.
Okay, so I think we are well beyond our time limit. So I would thank Mr. Pratyay Raha and Mr. Basu for being a part of this. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We enjoyed the discourse.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who joined us here, and we hope that you took with you what we also took from this discussion, which a lot of pain also, I think, but at the same time the initiatives that they spoke about also gave us some hope, and then we hope we can continue to create and expand this platform and continue to keep talking about these issues. So once again, thank you to everyone, and thank you to everyone watching.